Hello and welcome to Talking is a Free Action, another interstitial podcast from the ever-expanding Creature Club network, because
Creature
really,
Club Cinematic Universe.
because really 4 years into this project, I think we need to slow down. You know, I think we're getting through that monster manual too quickly, and we need to think about doing other things instead of just getting on with it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I like to consider Talking is Free Action kind of the Ant-Man of Creature Club, where it's it's a bit of fun, but like it's all right, you know.
Yeah. It's like, and just like Ant-Man, I like it more than anyone else, and I don't know why.
And there's no stakes in it. There's no stakes. There's no stakes in Talking is Free Action and an Ant-Man.
So this is a in-between podcast where we talk about anything else that doesn't fit under our other sort of structures. And it's just sort of when we feel like chatting about all things Dungeons & Dragons or TTRPGs in general. And we don't necessarily want to follow the structures we have in place for things like Creature Club or even for Treasure Trove, where there's very much, we're looking at a book. Talking is Free Action is more like just us literally talking shite.
Absolutely.
Mikey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm all right. I'm grand. I've just been kind of working away, and actually lately, and yourself, you know that, but yourself knows this, but I have been working on a lot of projects, creative projects, really, myself. And I think I mentioned in the last episode that has been out, or that last episode we recorded. I'll say it here anyway, that I started doing more YouTube stuff, and I've kind of now want to just like I kind of want to think bigger when it comes to the videos. You know, I've been playing through a game. I won't mention it yet, but I've told Daniel what it was, and I'm like, I need to make this a video. So I'm going to make a video game video, and also I have a big D&D video planned.
Which I'm very excited for.
That's coming very soon. And I'm like, I just want to make big stuff. But yeah, but when I'm thinking about making it, I have to think of all like the music. I have to think of clips and stuff. It's a big thing I'm doing here, but it's keeping me busy, and I'm really enjoying it. I don't know why I haven't started this again sooner, but now I'm doing it.
There's something so weird about that, isn't there? Like with creative projects, how like you put them off for so long, and then you actually start doing them. You're like, oh, I like this. I forgot.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I didn't do it, and I thought it would be hard, and it is hard. But it's like actually it being hard is really rewarding, and means that every success feels earned. So like when I do something, when I complete a task, when when the thing I want to happens, or the music and the video lines up in a way that I really like, I know that I've earned that victory. Which is, it's funny. I don't know. Our brains are weird, and they play so many tricks on us.
Very weird, yeah.
But
and I'm in a house of like a lot of creative people here. Then we're always going like, I'm not good enough. Like, yeah, you are. Shut up. And then the other person's like, I'm not good enough. Like, yeah, you are. Shut up. Like, we're just telling each other that you are good. Stop listening to yourself. But
God, yeah, I know.
But when I was in college and stuff, and I was doing a few bit of like, I guess I was doing like sound engineering, but I also did a bit of like film production as well. I always enjoyed editing and putting together anything really, and even if it wasn't like a big like project, I just like doing small kind of even like YouTube video adjacent, just like pieces of editing work really, and I just like the process of doing the video editing really. So yeah, I'm happy I got it back into it again. It's fun. It's really good. So, and I think we might as well take the time we have right now to just do something and to keep ourselves busy, while we have the time during this current world event. You working on anything yourself, Daniel? Are you doing anything to keep yourself busy?
I'm actually, I am also working on some stuff. Some of the stuff I've kind of caught you up with. The recent supplement I made, Hide Elstone with the Esoteric, available now on DM's Guild. It's pay what you want, but I do not need money. I'm much more interested in people getting it and giving me feedback. But I am working on converting it into an appropriate format so that it can be loaded onto 5e Tools, which is an excellent website.
God, I've
that
been
allows.
using it. It's so good. Like,
I know, yeah. I only found it a few weeks ago, and I've used it so much. And
actually, let's gush real quick on 5e tools. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast and
Yeah.
you don't know it, then I only learned about it the other day.
yeah,
Give it a go. Just 5etools.com, I'm pretty sure.
it's actually
and just-
5e.tools. It's
Sorry.
even easier. No, it's fine. it's the sorting tools are so powerful that, like, one of I think my favorite stuff is stuff like, if you're like, I want a monster with a legendary action. No, I want a monster with a lair action, and I want the lair action to grapple people. You
Yeah.
can, like, put those filters into the bestiary, and it'll tell you, like, hey, these monsters are what you can use, which is fantastic. There's also some cool kind of like internet tools. Like, there's you can actually, like, sort of modify the monsters very easily. You can host a lot of homebrew stuff locally. So if you are just interested in creating stuff for you, it's very easy to make stuff. And then, like, say, for example, if you have, goblins in your campaign, but they're special goblins and they use a unique weapon, or they have a unique ability, it's very easy to modify the goblin and then save that, and just have that file locally, so that every time you return to 5e tools, you've got those goblins. And then obviously for someone like myself who's interested in kind of sharing it, there's also ways of putting it up on a shared Git repository where everyone can access it. And as I am also working on potentially adding the Creature Club stuff there, the previous homebrew collections, and also other stuff. And that's actually what I've been doing at the moment. I've been going back, and there's so many things we just did. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Like the stream where we made the Behir Soul Sorcerer subclass, or with the Carrion Crawler where we made those two alternate Carrion Crawlers, and things like that. Like, it's just been very interesting.
We might just, like, when we have a lot, just put it into, like, a inverted commas book, just one place for people who listen to us just to get, and just, like, we can just make a big document for it, and, like, here you go, here's everything, here's monsters, here's classes, whatever we've talked about,
here's all
we'll
the
put
bits.
it there.
Yeah.
That's great. But yeah, you've been working on making your own stuff, right, and kind of putting it onto this.
Yes. Exactly, yeah. Getting my own stuff on it. Basically taking anything I've kind of worked on in the past and converting it in a manner that's sort of compatible with this. Mostly sort of just out of I've been really enjoying learning how to use the tool set and all the different, like, options and abilities, and just how powerful it is as a kit. I've just really enjoyed that. So I've just been engaging with it. Like, it's really cool. So, like, at the moment, it's organized in such a way that, like, if you use, say, if you get the homebrew kit, the abilities show up, like, correctly in all the different areas and stuff like that, and it's just very cool. Like, the way homebrew integrates, or has the ability to integrate with the core site so easily. It's very, very impressive.
That's always been with these kind of sites. Yeah, like, whenever we're using, like, Roll20 or something like that, it's like, how do I get homebrew on it? It's not as easy to put homebrew onto it. So this is a great way of doing that.
It is.
It's so easy to put homebrew, because that's a big part of D&D is homebrew.
Absolutely, yeah. And even, like, the benefit of making small changes and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, 5e Tools, I think it's an absolutely fantastic site. I am strongly considering becoming a patron of theirs, because I think
I think so too.
I think the tool set's just fantastic, and I don't know why I wouldn't.
Is it like do I get an app if I'm a patron? That'll be actually perfect.
I think you can. I think anyone can download a version on their own machine if they want to.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think just becoming a patron gives you, like, some kind of extra insight, some extra channels on the Discord and stuff like that, and more of a kind of idea of what they're working on.
Sure, yeah, I might do that. Yeah.
But anyway, whether or not you're a patron, anyone listening to this, it's a fantastic resource. I strongly recommend it. It's so useful, and it's just, I've really, and it's also just, like, it's also kind of fun. There's in the same way that it's fun to just scroll through a monster manual and find monsters and be like, why haven't we ever fought a shambling mound, for example? And then to think about the monster and what you could do with it. In that same vein, there's something nice about a really nicely organized website with the exact same thing, but, like, in 100 places.
Yeah, like, how come we haven't fought a wooden donkey from Waterdeep, Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
I can think of a couple of reasons.
Hooves action, melee weapon, and +2 to hit. Reach 5 feet, one target, hit 4 or 1d4 +2 bludgeoning damage.
It's too scary. Turn it off.
It's got all this stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, so 5e Tools, fantastic website. If you need like a sort of a wiki style resource to help you run your games, I give it my highest recommendation.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I know this is kind of a freeform jazz, anything goes, but we kind of had an idea of talking about something today. I think we kind of have a broad topic of campaigns that we wanted to talk about. Kind of campaigns, ones that we've done, ones that we kind of want to do. And I kind of want to talk about like the strange campaigns, like the strange pitches, you know, because there's I love a bit of old classic D&D where it's like, let's just like when I was first started out, it just started out with like you know, no one pitched me a campaign. You just did the campaign. You just you were just saying we're gonna play D&D, and then most of the time you just kind of made it up as you went along, and you just kind of did D&D stuff where you just adventured and did quests. But lately we've been kind of getting into like campaign pitches and having, I don't know, lack of a better way of saying it, like gimmicky.
No, yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, yeah,
gimmicky ideas.
It's kind of funny to think about. In some ways, if you're running like normal D&D, like you don't even need a pitch, right? Like you kind of like, if you've got obviously it depends, but if you've got an experienced party and someone goes, I just want to run D&D, and people go, what's it about? And you go, oh, we'll just sort of play D&D. People will understand you mean like, oh, we'll kind of go on adventures, we'll have a party, we'll probably end up fighting different creatures and delving in dungeons. We might not have like one villain, we might deal with like lots of small problems, or we might have kind of one distant villain. But, you know, really it'll be kind of just about going on adventures. And it's actually funny when I think back, because I don't know if you have anything like this, Mikey. I know that for you, you started out playing D&D in like, you know, a college society. But like, I started out playing under our friend Robert. He ran like our first campaign back in 4th edition. And I still think about that campaign and how, because we didn't know how to play campaigns, anything went. You know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely,
Almost like I want to say anything good, because it was in the past.
Everything like, went.
It was like everything went exactly. Like we just sort of like things just happened. Like, and you know, you could extract moments from that campaign and sort of say like, this is enough material for a campaign, but we would just do it in a game and leave. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sort of like Doctor Who or something. You just go and do something and then you leave and that's it.
That's very much like games I first started to run, where things just happened. And I don't remember a lot. Like when people say you should start like, you know, you should talk about what your first games are. I'm like, I don't remember them at all. Like I remember who played with me. I remember the characters, I think, but what happened to them? No, I don't remember. There's nothing, like things just happened. We fought monsters. Wackiness ensued. We laughed around the table, and that's it. Like it was fun, but I don't remember what happened. You know, I didn't really think about trying to like make an adventure like you would find in a book. You know, I just kind of would play D&D and just go for it. You know, like I would come up with like let's have them fight a brain in a jar today, and then they did. Yeah, and that's not just me being weird. That actually is a monster in D&D is a brain in a jar. So there you go. But yeah, no, I very much agree with you, Dan. Where things just went.
things just occurred. All I was going to say was for kind of normal D&D or standard D&D, you don't really need a pitch. And it's funny because I always find, I don't know if you get this, but like, you know, at the moment I'm running a game and I'm actually very happy with how that game is going. But when it's like, because like it's a very strongly like, you know, narratively driven like game, really. It's about like a group of, you know, the party are in an area in the world. They're very much tied to that area by the story and by their actions. And so the whole campaign is going to take place there. And the enemies are kind of reasonably sort of set in stone. And because of that, I always get that thing where when I'm looking through a monster manual and I just see like, I don't know, like some weird like aerial coastal beast that picks sailors off ships or whatever. I go, God, I'd love to just run a game where they're just at sea and this happens and they just have to deal with this problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you just get these moments where you're like, I'd love to run the fight, the like almost like the like not even like the adventure, big A adventure, but like the game about this monster, like, you know, where it's like, you know, griffins have been stealing our sheep, and you just have one game where the party go and deal with the griffin problem.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
it. And you know, you almost want the sort of zero stakes, like the griffins are stealing sheep, they go deal with it. You know, next week you've gone further down the road and there's a troll blocking the bridge, and now this is your problem. You know what I mean? Like, just like entirely episodic, almost no link aside from the actual characters themselves.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing, just always like, I always just go, oh, I think that'd be really cool. But I think the reality of it is that, like, you know, you'd probably get a bit bored quite quickly if there was just like no reason to do anything, because it's like,
Sure,
oh,
yeah.
just,
Yeah, and I really like I love the episodic kind of adventures in D&D like that, but I really like just kind of stories, really. And sometimes, it took me a while to get out of this when I first started out playing, but I had to try and get away from like, how come I should just write a novel if I want to tell this kind of story. But I kind of just want to tell a bit of a story. I want the characters to kind of go somewhere and kind of go different places and kind of progress a story, basically. And that's kind of how I like to run a game, really. So I'd say with an episodic one, I would just I would want to connect it somehow, really. But I know it's a lot of fun, though, you know, just kind of dealing with an adventure all the time. But I kind of figure out, like, you know, something like Cowboy Bebop, where it's episodic, but something's kind of connecting it together, you know, where they deal with it in the end. So
there's a thread tying it together. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool if you could do something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's sort of, I think, two parts to this. You know, I think we've adopted a model. Like, at least I've adopted a model, and I think I've kind of, I think it's mostly, it's kind of a two-part model. I think the second part of the model has been a long-standing trend in our play group, and the first part of the model was inspired by the suggestions that Matt Colville made in one of his videos quite a while ago now. So the first thing that we do ordinarily, if we're thinking of running a game, is we produce a series of pitches. So a pitch is more like a shorthand, like just like in the briefest possible terms, what is this game and why do I want to play it?
A trailer as well.
Yes,
a trailer.
That's a great way
for the game.
Yeah. So like, you know, what exactly is going to go on here, and why should we care about it? So, you know, you might have a document of 3 or 4 pitches, or maybe just 2. And you just ask the party, like, what are you guys interested in? I know there was one occasion where we actually did a server-wide pitch contest. Contest is maybe a harsh word for it. Like, there's not really a winner or a loser. It's just like everyone submitted pitches. And
we did a survey on our server, a server survey of just general, like, what kind of games we want to do, or how are we liking D&D? I think it's who did you do it? Did you take care of the survey, or was it Stephen?
Gosh, I cannot remember.
But either way, we did it just kind of like, what kind of stuff do we like to do? I think it was for a bit of fun almost, but but one of them was that we all put our campaign pitches up, and we're like, which game of all the campaign pitches would you like to play? You know, which one sounds cool to you? So,
the main thing I remember from that was that your pitch for Band on the Run got a lot of attention.
Yes.
And you were like, I have no plan for that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny.
We're all putting up pitches, and I was like, here's mine for the crack. I thought we were just doing for fun, but everyone wanted to play it. Basically, Band on the Run was, I kind of, actually, it was very much an episodic adventure, what I wanted to do. But you all play members of a band. And you can be bards if you want, but you should be, like, proficient in an instrument. You should be a member of a band.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And basically, your band going on tour, and every time you got to a town, something would get in the way of the show.
Yes.
Something would always get in the way of the show. So you have to so you'd hear, like, because you're a band, you're trying to make money. You would you get through a show, and like the town's like, oh, sorry, goblins actually have taken, you know, over the road, and no one's able to get to town anymore. So you're just like, no, we want money. We'll take care of those goblins for you as long as there's a show. Like,
yeah, just which is such a fantastic premise.
Yeah, it was basically stuff in that spirit and idea of like the show's not on, like yeah, let's do it, and like we'll take care of it. Don't worry. There's a dragon coming. Fine, we'll get rid of this dragon for you. We'll somehow like
somehow we'll come up with a plan.
We need money for this gig, and it was just going to always be like that kind of formula and that like stuff like that. And because I think I was being a independent musician and being in independent bands, you do what you do to make money, and you have a lot of funny stories from being on the road doing these small gigs, and I kind of wanted to put that energy into D&D. So
absolutely.
And apparently I pitched it well enough that a lot of people wanted to play it, so I might play that someday.
I think like we said at the start of this episode, there's something nice about something with very little stakes. I guess you feel like if you played that you'd very much be just able to do whatever, be very weakly, like you wouldn't have to worry about like long-term consequences. You could sort of just enjoy whatever's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's probably a lot of the kind of attraction to it as a game, just that it's nice and straightforward, nothing weird going on.
Absolutely, yeah. And just having a bit of fun with it, really. I kind of pictured to be a bit more on the comedy side, because I like just kind of lately I've kind of been afraid to be a bit to just be kind of go a bit silly with D&D, because it's a silly game, but usually I just always play a bit silly. I always play silly, and that's just, a lot of people like to play silly, but I kind of feel like lately there's been kind of a don't you do a silly game, you've got to be serious, don't you do that. I'm shaking my finger at you. That's
fantastic.
But don't you be doing that. But lately I've just been thinking that I can do a silly game. I'm gonna be like the game I'm gonna be doing for my video, which should be uploaded. So hopefully, if you're listening to this in the future, it'll be released for you to listen. But I'm not gonna jinx it. But that game's gonna be silly. Either way, if I release it or not, it's gonna be a silly game, and I like doing that. So yeah, I picture Band the Run being equally as silly, just kind of like messing around, making funny characters while having a bit of adventure in there as well. Find some monsters.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what the point of that was, but hey, yeah, that's what I think.
Just to talk, man. Just to talk about it. Just to chat and have fun.
And yeah, there's been a few campaign pitches around that time. Hold on, let me have a look. I did a one shot. I think I was doing a one shot at one point, and I came up with 3 pitches for that. So I pitched one called The Shining Streets, which I wanted to have kind of like an urban-based encounter where you kind of investigate mysteries around a city.
Yeah.
I have this city that's kind of on like very much like a Venice kind of city where it's on like water, So I kind of had this kind of cool city to be in, but it was going to be like investigate these strange things happening in the city, and I think I was watching JoJo's Part 4 around that time, and that part's very much like this city's fine, or this town is fine, but something's going on here. There's something going on.
Something happening, and
everyone in the town has to kind of figure it out. And that's kind of what I wanted with that one. I wanted to have like an urban-based mystery. I have a Shot of Glory on that one as well, which was my tournament arc, basically. And it was basically just a series of challenges, really, with that one. So, and whoever wins got a wish granted. So you might hear about that one later. A wink. And so the third one is Escape from Hazard's Rock, which was the one I actually ended up doing for that one, which was a prison escape campaign, where they were in a prison in the middle of the like kind of a prison island, but it was actually just a rock in the middle of the island. Or no, there's a rock in the middle of the ocean, and inside the rock was the prison, and around in that ocean, it was like well out in there in the ocean. So in the ocean there were sea monsters, so if anyone tried to escape, the sea monsters would get you. The opening scene was basically the guys were brought from an airship onto the top of the rock, and then I had like a little cut scene of a guy going like, I'm gonna get out of here, and he just jumped down and started swimming. And then like the guys just looked down, and then they just saw this shadow underneath it, and a giant monster just comes out and eats him. Like, oh, okay, we can't do that then. Great.
Yeah, it's like, that won't work. Okay.
That won't work. Yeah. But yeah, that was basically, they started from one level and they had to get down to the bottom level to get to like an escape pod, basically. And that was my game for that one, and that was a lot of fun. I'd love to do something like that again. And Band on the Run, it's not on this one, but that was definitely on one of the pitches. But yeah, just kind of like I had this idea, and I kind of wanted to go with smaller campaigns. Just kind of here's like one that might last for 3 games at most, and I have an idea. I just want to give that idea a go. So That's cool. I like that. I like kind of doing it that way. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think like it's also nice that idea of kind of saying these are my, because I've done something similar. How I've saved my pitches is like, I have some pitches that are saved as like one shots because I'm like, this isn't really a campaign idea. It's just an idea that I think would be like maybe 1 to 3 games. And then, you kind of separate that out from like, hey, here's an actual idea for a whole campaign, or here's an idea for a campaign that might work best in this format or with this kind of game.
Yeah.
And then obviously, to bring us back to the past. As I said, there were 2 parts to this. So the first part is the pitch. And ordinarily, when you present pitches, you don't just present one, you present a couple, right? You say like, hey, this is the game we could play next. Here's 3 ideas. Let's see what the party think. And then the second part is the primer. I don't know where we got the idea of a primer from, but we've been doing them for a really long time. At least my play group has.
You sent me a primer like ages ago. I'm like, what is this? But it's handy. The first primer you gave me was for at the time was like the Legacy of Casa, but it ended up becoming Quest Boys, what we always say on this. And you sent me that. I was like, what's a primer? And you're like, oh, it's a bit of information for the campaign. And you just had like, do you want to play a human? Then you should be like this. Or do you want to play this? Yes. It was basically like, here's what's going to happen and here's what you should know. And then I'm like, that's genius. That is absolutely genius. You are like, it's perfect. It gives sometimes the players like, so what's going on in this game? And then you might have to like exposit all the information like at the start. But it's just easy. You do a little bit of homework first. Yeah, it's like absolutely. It's basically a case that like, like it's weird, like because we've been doing primers for a really long time. Like I want to say, and our devoted listener and friend of the podcast, Stephen, will be able to verify this. I believe our friend Jack was the first person who wrote a primer, although I don't know if that's true, but I recall him presenting the first primers anyway. And basically just like, those primers are a bit different to the ones that I've written in the sense that they're a bit more, they're kind of more like lore heavy, and they kind of, they're almost more like a tone piece, I guess would be the term you'd use, where they kind of make you feel like you're there so that you want to engage with the material. And whereas the primer as I write them is much more like, here's a brief suggestion of what the lore of this circumstances are like. Here's kind of maybe a historical perspective, and then in the context of the Legacy of Casa or Quest Boys, I did a little thing because of the fact that we were coming from a variety of different play backgrounds, where I said, hey, are you thinking of playing a human or a fighter? Well, the region of Casa has a strong martial tradition, so a lot of people would be comfortable with swords or blades. Are you thinking of playing a Dragonborn? Well, the Dragonborn might come from this area or this area. Are you thinking of playing a dwarf? Well, there's this, this hold deep to the south that's kind of important and has, some history tied to it. And do you want to be from there? And it was really just to give people something to stick to. It didn't actually get used much, which was very funny to me. Almost no one was like, I'm going to use that example that you gave to build my character. Almost everyone just built their own thing, and then we were like, okay, well, let's figure out where this fits. But it was still, I think, valuable just to give an idea to people of like, hey, what's going on and what's up. And certainly I've enjoyed primers. I think my favorite primer I wrote was the one for Go Forth and Speak the Word. I don't know if you remember that, Mikey. That was the I don't know if I still have the primer for that one, but I do remember the game. Do you have the primer on you? Can you send it to me?
I have the primer, yeah.
Send it to me on the chat.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Because I do remember. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll send it on to you. This primer starts with a letter. So the letter reads, "To my loyal and humble servant, it is with regret and deep sorrow that I report that the late ex-bishop of the bishopric of Blood's End, Hyro Amigla, has been found guilty of heresy by the Inquisition of the Diatribe and subsequently executed. May his soul redeem itself in judgment. However, we both know our wisest Dagda never destroys our path, but merely diverts it with a perfect flick of his staff. I also write to inform you of your appointment by my hand as head of the bishopric of Blood's End. Your term begins immediately. report to the Cathedral of Redemptive Bones in Blood's End. You shall be ordained and granted symbols befitting your office. While you are surely familiar to some extent with the duties of a priest of your new station, the town of Blood's End has some unique circumstances that will be discussed per your arrival. By my oath, I shall endeavour to leave you well acquainted with your office and responsibilities. I should not need to inform you that the Inquisition will almost certainly have a strong interest in your new office. Remember that while their ways may be strange and hard, they are servants of the same wise as you. I am certain that with due time and observation, they will find your practice more than satisfactory. I look forward to seeing you in Blood's End. By the wise and the word, Archbishop Veridon B. Zane. P.S. While the late bishop had an effective staff, the Inquisition will likely dissolve much of his office. I advise you to invite any trusted allies, whether ordained or layfolk, to join your office.
Excellent stuff right there. So that's the pitch. That's not the entire thing, but that is
That is, it's literally called the pitch at the stop. And then I don't explain anything else about the setting. I actually deliberately left that out of the primer because I liked the idea that you would have to infer all your information from this letter. So in case anything wasn't clear to people, basically the former bishop of a town has been executed for heresy, found guilty by the Inquisition, and the player, one of the players, is going to be playing the new bishop.
Yes.
They are a cleric, and they are going to replace that bishop and become bishop of a town. Immediately following, some deep suspicion by the Inquisition.
Yeah.
And so I did that, which I liked. And then I also did another thing where, this is the first time I did this, actually. So I always do a sort of a breakdown of, like, if you're playing this game, here's how you roll ability scores. Here's a few different options so that you can get different benefits. Here's a lot of the time, I will allow firearms in my game, so I have like fighting styles specifically for firearms because otherwise they're just not as useful. And then I have a few home rules about just various bits and pieces. Everyone has
quick
their own home
potion
rules.
is my
Quick
favorite.
Quick potion is an old timer.
You can drink a potion as a bonus action, basically. So, but my favorite thing is it's called quick potion, and I kind of want that to always be the name of the thing. Is quick potion.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I think, and then it's just stuff like that. But then one of the things I did, which was a lot of fun, was that because this is something I'd kind of never done before. I always have a section called character options, which includes stuff like I have home rules for if you want to play a monster. So if you wanted to play like an ogre, I'm an ogre. The point I was going to make was that for the first time in character options, I have a section called character requirements, which is new, which says one member of the party must play the Orthodox priest who has been appointed to the role of bishop. The bishop must have the majority of their class levels in cleric. And everyone started at 7th level, so that means you have to be at least a 4th level cleric. And that was interesting to me because that's the first time I've ever done that, where I've said somebody needs to play this.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just show up with whatever. Okay, that's not true, right? Everyone except one person can show up with whatever.
Yes, but you needed one cleric.
Yes, exactly. And then I did a really fun thing that I really liked doing called character suggestions. Where I have, after that, obviously, the letter is addressed to the priest. So the priest kind of knows what their job is. And then, because I wanted everyone else to feel like they had a role, I came up with a system of character suggestions.
And before you go into them, the character suggestions, when I'm looking at them now, sounds a lot like we're playing a co-op, like, board game with, like, card-heavy board game here. But
yeah.
Read them out here, and then I'll say why.
Yeah. Okay, so character suggestions. So the first one is the bodyguard. And then there's a description of like who the bodyguard is and what they are. But my favorite is that for each of them, I have a little quote. So the bodyguards is, do you know how many people try to kill you every day? No? Then I'm doing my job right. Which I like. And then it sort of talks about how like, hey, a bodyguard might be like a paladin, or you could be like a rogue who's like a counter assassin who like stops other people assassinating this guy.
Yeah.
by being better than them, which is I think so cool.
I assassinate assassins.
Like literally that you're the most dangerous assassin in the city, and your only job is to kill other assassins because you work for the church. So the bodyguard, the inquisitor, the spurned, the mentor. So these are like the 4 character suggestions, and there was, I think, it was 3 party members, so there was more than enough for everyone.
Yeah.
The
So
Inquisitors is, I do not doubt the Inquisition did their duty. I merely doubt all things, for that is my duty. Then there was the Spurned, and the Spurned is supposed to be someone who was linked to the bishop. Actually, I'll just read the quote out. I cannot believe the judgment of the Inquisition. If you knew Bishop Mila as I did, you would understand. I know it. And then finally, the Mentor is, you must trust your instincts tempered by faith. There is a reason Dagda chose you and chose here. So that's the idea, is that like the Spurned is someone who knew the old bishop and is trying to uncover the truth of them being executed for heresy.
Yeah.
And the Mentor is sort of whoever guided the cleric to their current position. And there's stuff like questions on like, hey, how come you weren't made bishop and stuff like that, which is fun.
And it's just great. It's I'm pretty myself, because there was 3 of us playing. It was myself and our friends Jonathan and Jack. And Jack decided to be the bishop. And Jonathan and I, we made our own characters. So I made a bodyguard because I like playing fighters. And Jonathan made the Inquisitor. Because actually he played a ranger, so we
played a Gloomstalker, I think.
Yeah, the two, like, he realized doing rangers because he plays all rangers. So the two of us just played our own like types. But
your favorite thing,
but we were like, I just read through this and like I'm probably gonna play a fighter, so I'm gonna be the bodyguards is perfect for it. Like, and these character suggestions are very cool because it gives like, they're written there and it's like these are guys that would really fit well into this game. But I'm not gonna tell you. There's no like real like huge lore bits and stuff. There's no like, you're from here and you do this. No, it's just like, here's a type of character that'll be great in this game. Here's a type of guy, and you can kind of do whatever you want from that. Because I played the bodyguard, but my guy was ended up being like a kind of like a fourth son of a noble lord.
Yes, exactly. And you were like sort of the idle son, basically.
Yeah, and I wasn't doing anything, so just like, cool, you're gonna become a knight then, and we have nothing for you here, so we're gonna send you off and with this bishop. And he's I really like the character. He basically he was a kid and he was a knight, and he swore an oath to protect this bishop, but he's also like, I haven't really done a whole lot in my life, and I've just been sent on to do this, and I don't really know what it is. I don't have anything. There's not really much going on in my life other than this, really. But even though it's my duty, it's like duty against, like, I don't really like this a whole lot, but I still like it because I like these people.
It was like sort of the reluctant knight. You were like, you kind of like, you had a family expectation to take this role, and it wasn't even that you kind of disliked it. It was really more that you sort of, I think, your character wanted to be someone, and was like, I'm just doing this because, like, my father sent me off this way, and like, I think there was kind of the implication that like, for your family, it was maybe a way to get power in the city. Was to like have it be that like, oh, one of our sons serves the bishop directly, and that's going to be like our way into the city to disrupt the power balance and stuff like that.
It's very much just a politics thing where it's like, we have an extra son, so let's just send him off to a strong figure, we have another connection.
And let's form more connections and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And then that was cool because like your character was the bodyguard and a fighter, but they were also like a knight, like they were a noble, like they had prestige. And then Jonathan's character was the Inquisitor, and he was like just a total enigma, right? Like he just was just someone who showed up. And for him it was like he very much took to the role of like, it's his job to investigate and figure the truth out. And we had a lot of fun with how Inquisitors can just do whatever they want.
It was really fun just seeing going just like, I can live here now, right? And like, I guess you have to. Yeah, sure, come on in. Here's a room for you.
He can just do whatever he wants. Everyone's afraid of him. Everyone's afraid of Inquisitors. Which was great. And like,
he would just like I think he took like a letter of the bishop at one point, like, that's mine, taken as evidence, like, just like,
he like read it first before he handed it off, I think, and stuff like that, which is so funny. And then there was that great moment where like he investigated this like the tenement building and found a bunch of like signs of corruption, and then he like just requisitioned the use of the city guard. and just
Yeah.
like had them cordon off the building. And it's just like, yeah, because who's going to say no to the Inquisitor? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it was just so, I think he had so much fun with the role. And I think he did a really good job, like just being someone who was just had like this effortless authority.
Yes.
Would just say like, just do this. And people couldn't say like, wait, no, we can't, because he's the Inquisitor. And then there was a great moment where the king hosted a ball, and obviously he invited the bishop, because the bishop is, you know, the highest ranked clergy in town. And he invited you both because you are his bodyguard, but also because you are a noble.
Yeah.
And the Inquisitor wasn't invited because he's just a person. And Jonathan's like, did I get an invitation? I'm like, no, but you could just show up. Like, like
Would have been great. No one would have stopped him. But like what? Because it was very cool. Because that game, I think it worked because there was only 3 of us playing. There's only 3 players, and we had a small group. And I really like it when there's really small groups. Sometimes I like big groups, but I like small groups as well. And especially because the 4 of us were just like, you know, we played a lot together and we kind of knew each other. We're comfortable with each other. Because of a small group, there was a lot of splitting up the party, and it actually worked, I think, here, because the first time it happened was we were investigating something going on in the city, as you were saying there, and we were just like, Bishop, you can't. I don't know if you can just go out there and beat up these commoners, like these criminals. People are gonna see that, and he's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't. Like, and then he actually, he made like an extra character. Was it a Warforged or something, or what happened?
Yeah. So basically, the idea was that the church effectively had like clockwork soldiers.
Yeah.
And I sort of explained as like they're basically like they're like an automata. And you can effectively use different instructional scrolls to inform their decision making. And basically, it was my way of saying, even though you get one automata, they can adopt different classes based on the context. So that basically Jack could remain in the, you know, it was obviously the idea that like the bishop couldn't go and, you know, break into a tenement building to beat up some drug dealers.
Yeah.
But the Inquisitor could. And the bishop wanted to help, so he basically sent along this kind of automata from the reliquary, and Jack effectively got to build a second character to represent that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Because it felt like a very natural thing that, like, yeah, of course he wouldn't go, and it's like you could build a knight or something else, but I always thought it made most sense just that it's like, yeah, it's just like a thing the church has in the basement, because it's like they're old and powerful and they just have things.
They just have a bit of everything. Like it's magic
it's just
item, like it's in there.
Like, yeah, and actually something I really liked about the party was that you know, there was a reliquary, but there was very little like, we take all the magic items.
Yeah.
Like the only time that happened was when Jonathan was like, is there anything like, he's like, I think he was like, was there any magic arrows? Because he had a bow, and he was like, just because they'd be handy because I'm about to go fight something quite dangerous. And I was like, oh yeah, there's some magic arrows, and so he took the magic arrows. But it was like, yeah, he's an inquisitor of the church, and he's requisitioning magic weapons to kill something he thinks is heretical.
Yes.
And so it wasn't like, I'm gonna steal everything and sell it for cash. It was like, no, my character is like, you know, I'm gonna use this stuff because it's here to be used. And even like, there's a cool idea where like other people in the church might say that's not supposed to be used, it's in the reliquary. But like, neither of them would be wrong saying that. It would just be a difference of opinion, and I think that's cool as well.
And the second time we split the party, and this was actually splitting the party, I think, because I forgot that he made a second character for the first time. I just remembered there. But the second time, as you said, 2 of us were invited to a party of the king, and Jonathan wasn't. So basically, I forgot what exactly happened, but we don't have to go into huge detail. But basically, the Inquisitor went off into like a town on the other way, on the like a bit over, like I guess a separate town.
Yeah,
while
it's like, so the town you guys are in is like in the middle of the sort of like, it's on a river, and basically there's a dock at the end of the river. It's like a small dock village basically.
Yeah.
Which I think I have the notes here. Let me see if I can find it.
And myself and the bishop were in the party.
Yes.
And then he was over in the town, and basically the moment when we both started to feel like something was iffy, Smash in the middle of the ball, like attackers try to attack the king. So we were in a fight there, my character and the bishop, and then while that was happening, the Inquisitor found out that there was something going on with this kind of town. He found some some pirates who were strange. I think they're like pirates or sea people anyway, satyrs of some sort. They found out there's something strange going on, and they're going into this cave or some sort of weird creature. And then he found out it's an aboleth. So basically, when the fight started, they happened at the exact same time. So we had this parallel action sequence.
Which was fantastic,
Which was so good. It's such a good way of doing splitting the party, is having like a fight go on at the same time, but like you're nowhere near each other. You can't help each other out. But your fights are so we can just have the encounter happen now.
So so the encounter happens at once, and like you split the initiative. You put everyone in the initiative order because you can use one initiative order for two fights. If you got them on the same map.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it was great fun, and I even liked the context because like. The fight in the king's chamber was like assassins burst in every window and attacked all at once. And like everyone in the city was there. So like, the king was immediately protected by his like magical bodyguards and stuff. Yeah. But like you guys, elected to stay to fight the invaders and help the people. And then comparatively like, Jonathan's character who is, on this isolated island off the coast. It was so Blood's End was the town you were in, and Bloodsmouth was the name of the dock, the port town.
Yeah,
and so he'd left Bloodsmouth to go to like an island off the coast because he had he'd been talking to the locals and he was like, I want to investigate it, and the people who brought him there were acting kind of weird, and then they just jumped him because they had been possessed, like they'd been dominated by an aboleth. And so even the context of the fights were so different. Like he's fighting these like three like, dirty pirates on like the coast of a forgotten island. I think there's like one torch between the four of them. Yeah. And you guys are fighting in this fucking ballroom with assassins everywhere.
It was just quite bonkers. Like it was fantastic. But I was like, what's going on now? Like this, but I think you were just thinking, I know what I'm going to do for this. I'm going to have the fight happen at the same time. I know, like, I can just picture the thought process in your head. Like, it'll be easier if this just happened at the same time.
Exactly. Because the idea originally, I think, was just that those would just be two fights, right? Like, there'd be one fight, you'd all be at the party, and that would happen. The king would be attacked, and you guys would get an opportunity to fight in that room. And then later on, you would maybe that exact fight wouldn't happen, because obviously you might act differently if the three of you are together. But broadly, the servants of the aboleth would try to stop you before you reach them, and that would involve probably a fight on the island, because then they would have you kind of isolated and you wouldn't be able to call for help and that kind of thing. So like it was really just like I always knew that like those two would be good moments for fights, and I just toned the kind of the fight slightly differently because of the party distribution. And it was just it just felt very natural that it would be like, and then they both happen at the same time, because that's very exciting.
That was cool. Yeah. And that was actually the last session we did that, because I think we just stopped because of like COVID, really.
We did, although you guys did beat the aboleth.
We did, yeah. Was that a big bad? Was that a bad?
That was the season bad.
Yeah.
Because as you guys found out at the end of the campaign, the aboleth was the reason for the plague.
Yeah.
So that was like Arc 1 bad, and the point was that the attack on the king was the introduction of the Arc 2 bad. If you guys wanted to keep playing, basically.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, but who attacked the king? That kind of thing.
Yes. Cool. Very cool. Yeah.
But obviously then the other thing you could do is you could go, well, we can also put these characters in retirement, and then you play a new party who are investigating this problem, and maybe you're even hired by the bishop, who's like, the ball was attacked, I want you to find out who did it. But you're just a group of schmoes. Like you don't get to be anyone powerful anymore, you're just schmoes, and maybe they just order you around because you're schmoes.
I remember we actually there was like basically there was like a cave system underneath us, and we didn't want to like do the dungeon, I guess, ourselves, because we had other stuff to do, and we were higher level and we were powerful. So we're just like, let's hire some adventurers to go in there for us and just see what's going on in there. And we did that, and that was a fun way of doing it, I think. Just
like, it was like you guys went down there, and you basically like you found like an ankeg nest, and you beat the ankeg queen, and like I think someone just was like, oh, there's probably more down there, but like they're going to be scattered. There's going to be like one or two, you know what I mean? Like, and so you basically just decided like, well, rather than us, like we're pretty important people, rather than us spending a week down there hunting one or two creatures, why don't we hire some rat catchers to do it?
Yeah.
And that's, then you did, and that was it. And it made perfect sense. That of course you would.
Yep. And I always thought that like a good, like the kind of the hook for that campaign, kind of like the meta hook almost of that was finding out what the past bishop did to like get executed for heresy.
Yes, of
like
course.
what's
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
I thought that was kind of the main story. Like this campaign's about dealing with this, and also kind of the meta story is what the bishop finds out about the heresy or something. That's kind of like the
exactly. Why was the previous bishop? Yeah, and the reason for stuff like that was because I didn't want to assume you guys would care.
yeah.
You know,
But like, if I was a reader of this book, I'd be like, I want to figure out what happened to the last bishop, But I can understand our characters wanting to go that kind of way and stuff. But I'd say that would have been a great part of the story, But
yeah, and like I think and in many ways, the benefit of your party was you had the Inquisitor, and they're that's their sort of quest line, right? Like the Inquisitor and the Spurn are the two sides of the coin of like, let's figure out what happened to the old bishop.
yeah,
Whereas, like, if you didn't necessarily take that character option, you'd be like, okay, no one cares about that. Let's drop that plot point. But, like, yeah, that's the idea, is that, like, there's all these kind of different, it's like, why is there a plague in town? What did the previous bishop actually do? Who's attacking the king? And, like, all these questions are, like, depending on what your role in the sort of, party was, you'd have different questions and different answers.
I do remember you saying when you gave us this campaign, you're like, there's politics in it. If you want, like, you can deal if you want, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that was a great campaign. I would love to continue that story at some point in the future,
Yeah,
at least with new characters or whatever. Just like finding out what hell happened with that I would love to do that. But yeah, that's great. So, do you want to talk about some kind of campaign ideas that we want to do? Do you have any ideas that you want to do?
So the big one that I want to do is actually like not a sort of a campaign of my own, but I really, really want to. I really want to run Red Hand of Doom.
Red Hand of Doom, yeah.
That adventure really excites me. I think it would be a really good time to run, and I think the only thing I was thinking in terms of like my unique spin on it was that. So like Red Hand of Doom is deliberately kind of a mid-level adventure. I think the expectation is that the party will start at 7th level or something.
Yeah.
So in many ways, the idea would be like, okay, well, you either want to start off with a high-level party, or even better, you want to actually play with that party so that people have a grasp of each other, and then they jump into this adventure with very high stakes. And so ages and ages and ages ago, literal years ago, I actually don't know, 2018, February 2018, so literally 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like reasonably long time. I'm pretty sure that's, I have a suspicion that sort of February was like a little after the tomb started. Anyway, the game started. Anyway, the point is, actually what I meant to say was that's the end point when I finished editing my notes. So it's actually like, might have even been like the year before that February. Anyway, my point is, I had this campaign called Herald of the Red Hand. Premise was very simple. You're in a place, the Red Hand from Red Hand of Doom, which is basically an army of hobgoblins. They are scouting this region. Their forward scouts have reached this area, and after they finish invading Elsir Vale, which is the area they're going to invade in Red Hand of Doom, they're going to invade this region next. And so it's a very simple premise that lets the party learn about the threat of the Red Hand and, go to investigate it in Elsir Vale, and then sort of take part in that adventure with some foreknowledge and some experience working together, and some, power from overcoming the Red Hand in that region. The only thing I would do differently is that something I only realized more recently when I was reading over the adventure again, because I was reading it recently just because I was like, gosh, this adventure is so good, why is it so, like, I want to understand why it's so good, because I want to be able to make good adventures. Um, but like, something I realized upon rereading it is that actually Red Hand has a bunch of places that it doesn't really use. It just kind of says, like, there's a village here and it's like this, or hey, to the south there's a bunch of dwarves in the mountains and they're pretty cool. And then it even acknowledges, yeah, we don't really use these in the adventure, but if you wanted to use them, here's some stuff they might do. And I was just like, I don't even need to go to a different region to run Herald of the Red Hand. I can just run it in the region from the adventure module and just use all the places that the actual campaign doesn't use.
Yeah.
And so that's like renewed my excitement to run a game there. And I think that would be so cool. I really like what Herald of the Red Hand does. At its most basic, it just gives you like a timeline and says, like, on day 60, the bad guys win. So what's the player's plan?
Yeah.
And I think that's just so fucking cool. I absolutely love that as an idea of just saying, like, if you wait long enough, you lose by default. Like, if you do nothing, you lose. If you go on the wrong adventure, you lose. The way you win is by confronting this problem. And I like that idea because it really, like, you know, the players don't have to come up with the perfect plan. They just have to do something. Yeah. And I think that's so freeing. Like,
yeah. And players tend to faff about a little bit. And I think this, like, when they hear that, like, we got to really think about something here. We got to buckle our head down and kind of, you know, confront the baddies in some way. So, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool idea. I'd love to read it, but who knows? I might even play it. So, if you run it, so I don't know.
That's true. Yeah. So we won't spoil too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I really want to run. I have a few ideas, but I really wanted to run like a super high stakes one, basically. Like, I just kind of want I just want to kind of destroy the world almost, but not just completely destroy it. But I want to like really
break stuff.
I want to break stuff. Yeah, I want to kind of really change the status quo. Even though our setting doesn't have too much of a status quo, we can kind of do whatever we want with it. But you know, change something about it. And I've mentioned before lots of times on this where I have an evil empire in the setting. The Cardean Empire, well, evil inverted commas, but I kind of pitch them more like the Fire Nation, where it's like, you know, led by a questionable person, but they're either bad or all right. They're just regular people, you know, living there. But it's just
they're still people. Yeah.
A lot of like propaganda going around in it.
They're like, they're belligerent, you know, to their neighbors, but they're just people. Like,
absolutely, yeah. But basically the Emperor is who is supposedly the strongest mortal in the entire world. And I kind of wanted to do a campaign where he just kind of like, you know, I'm tired waiting now. I'm going to just like take over the neighboring lands. And I wanted to have the players kind of be like from those lands. And I wanted the campaign to just be kind of a all-out war, basically. And at the end, you fight the Emperor, who's super powerful, and like things are just really breaking, really. And I kind of wanted to have a big scale one, but that's kind of hard to do. But I think with the right players over the right amount of time, it'd be a fun one to do. You know.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That's been one in my head though, just kind of like, you know, working your way towards the center of the empire and just breaking it down or changing it at least. So.
Yeah, the other pitch I have is called. Well, for the one that kind of excites me is like, it's called The Lord in the Tower. It's basically the basic premise is that like the local like regent, the local lord, is like you know, introducing increasingly strict taxes. You know, his soldiers are going around taking things, and like, you know, he's basically he's basically like feeding all these strange things into this like tower he exhumed from the wilderness. No one really knows what's going on. But the introduction is going to be that the party are all outlaws. They've been forced into the wilderness by the like draconian laws of the Lord.
Okay.
And so I really basically just want to run a Robin Hood game.
Yeah.
But just one where like we go like right from the start. Okay, the party are all criminals. If you walk into town and someone spots you, they will tell a guard, and you will like have trouble. Like maybe you'll get arrested, maybe you'll get killed, maybe you'll end up in a fight and kill a guard. If you kill a guard, you'll get in worse trouble. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just really kind of like the basic stakes of like, if you walk into a town, that's a choice you've made.
Yeah.
I really like that. Like, and obviously you can do things like go in disguise or send an intermediary. How much do you trust them? Blah, blah, blah. Like all that stuff. And I think that idea of just, I think I like the notion of both the simple decision making of like you are outlaws and your resources are constantly limited because you're living on the fringes of society, and the things that you might take for granted otherwise you don't have. And I also potentially like the idea of like, you know, the party gather outlaws under them and form a band of merry men, and maybe there's like an element of organization, of like trying to, you know, build a rebel army potentially, and like thinking about how can you undermine the power of this lord, or like, do you try to figure out the mystery they're trying to solve? Do you just go for the castle and try to kill them? Like, do you try to replace them or overthrow them with popular support? And do you like go to other lords to ask for support? You know,
yeah, build a community as well. Kind of like, you know, if you find other people who are like that, just kind of making a small kind of camp together or something and kind of fighting together. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
That's very cool.
Which I would like. And like in particular, I think, you know, you could have a lot of fun with the idea of like, there's guards and there's patrols, and maybe the party reach a point where the guards and the patrols just like aren't really a problem anymore. Like they're not so dangerous that the party are really worried. And then at that point, like the authorities start bringing in like bounty hunters. So you get to introduce like colorful characters, like anti-parties, like, bands of adventurers who are hunting the party and are like as powerful as them, but are on the other side. And then obviously you can kind of have people turncoat and stuff like that. Maybe you try to like, you know, you don't fight these people, you try to talk them down, or you defeat them and then you capture them and try to convince them as to the value of your side. I just think it would be fun. I think I like stuff like that where like, you know, the idea of saying to the party, like, you're all criminals, like you're all outlaws, right? And you might be good people or bad people. That's actually not important. You're all outlaws. You're all stuck on the wrong side of the law. But I like the idea of being like, you know, why are you an outlaw? Like, what led you here? Like, and you might have people who are like, I'm a poacher, right? Like, I steal from people, or like, you know, like a like a cattle rustler, and then they might be alongside like, you know, somebody who is like a knight who tried to speak up in defense of someone else and was outcast, like someone who is actually like a good person but has been tossed aside. I like that sort of, you know, discrepancy, and like, you know, the idea of saying to the party, like, you're all stuck together because outlaws don't have anyone else. So like you have to like each other. So, you know, kind of deliberately doing that thing, because we're quite good at this as when we play together. But like, you know, having a party with a bit of drama, a bit of tension between them, but kind of letting the party kind of amp that up a bit and say like, you can actually, like, you can go as far as actually disliking each other, because you are stuck together, and anyone with sense knows that. So you can be like, I disagree with you and the way you act. That doesn't mean I won't fight with you, because the only people we have to stay alive is the people around this campfire. And I think that's kind of fun.
And actually incredibly similar to that campaign is one that I want to do, is just a pirate campaign, which can be very similar to that, where you're outlaws, and wherever you go into town, you could actually be like, you might not be like the terrible kind of pirates, but if you're outlaws and you're out there just wanting a bit of freedom, and you're like, you know, you're doing whatever you can to make money, the town doesn't like you, and maybe you have a bounty on your head or something. You can do the exact same thing with pirates if you so wanted, you know.
That's true, and pirates have the benefit of like the ship is a mobile base, and gives a nice sense of freedom. Yeah,
but you can have we're stuck out in sea and we can't go anywhere for food now. What we gonna do, you know? Stuff like lots of stuff like that, really. Just piratey stuff. Because that's one I wanted to do for ages. Is a pirate campaign. So, which I think every DM in the back of their mind always want to do at least one pirate campaign, you know.
Well, yeah, there's so much appeal in pirate fiction. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. But yeah, I wouldn't really know where to start. If any of you listeners have any like good pirate campaigns that you've run, or even adventures, you know, similar to Red Hand of Doom, but that have had a piratey theme, that you thought were good, get in touch.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because
hear the ideas.
Because I don't tend to use adventures much. I'm much more of a, I'll make up my own stuff. And so kind of Red Hand of Doom is sort of the exception to me. Like it's like the one pre-written adventure where I feel like the way it's structured is so good. And that sounds like I'm complaining about other adventures. I'm not. It's just like when I read it, it makes so much sense to me how everything's structured that I have a really easy time understanding how I'd use it as a campaign.
And I can't say that for any other campaign book at all.
I know,
any module.
I know.
Like I like the content in it, and I like it when a really like good DM, like friend of the podcast, Stephen, he somehow made sense of Tyranny of Dragons.
Oh, absolutely.
Somehow,
yeah,
and he did a fantastic campaign. But he somehow
Yeah.
read those two books.
He deciphered them.
Yes,
is what I would use that term like.
And like it's like wow. I read the stuff myself, and I'm like, how is this possible? Like how I just don't have much of an attention span for it really, but like when you can read a book and you know exactly what it's trying to say, like that's great.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and yeah. Like if there are other, actually, something I've been meaning to was look at the authors of that adventure and see what else they've written, because my instinct says that if this is just how they write, then maybe their other adventures are similarly like, if not like objectively good or whatever. Like I feel like at the very least, if they're written in that same very clear style, I'll probably have a much easier time like being like, oh, this adventure isn't perfect, but I have a really clear idea of what they're doing. So I know exactly how I'm going to rework it for my game, which is how I feel about Red Hand of Doom as well. I have such a clear idea of like the intention of the author and what's going on that it's like, if I ever thought, I don't like that, I could really easily see myself going, I'll just change it. I know exactly why it's like that and what needs to be changed for it to work.
Yeah.
Which is just really rewarding. As a reader, it's so rewarding.
Yeah. Actually, another adventure that I've read and actually did make a little bit of sense of, even though it's a little bit, as in the book is a little bit strange, is the Sunless Citadel. It just it's a really good adventure, but it just has a few rooms really, and if you just give it a read over and know what's in all the rooms, then it's pretty easy to run because it's just a dungeon basically. It's a big dungeon.
Yes,
it's a big dungeon, and there's a few like character connections in there that you have to know. But yeah, I really like that one. But we've talked about the Sunless Citadel a lot on this.
That's true. We have Sunless Citadel is it's great, but it is. Like, I don't even know if Sunless Citadel is really an adventure versus just being like it's just a dungeon, right? Like, it's just, here's a dungeon, here's a bit of context to go into it, but really, here's a dungeon.
Yes, it's a dungeon. Absolutely, yeah.
Like, a very good dungeon. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, as in, versus, like, something like Tyranny of Dragons, which is, like, a whole adventure, that with lots of different places and stuff.
Yeah. I really want to do big adventure, lots of places. I want to try that someday.
Oh, they're great. I've never run one, but I've played in them, and
they're a lot of fun.
They're so much fun. When Rob's game was that. It was just go places, do stuff.
Yeah.
And they're great when they keep pace and they just keep pushing you out the door to go somewhere else. They're so much fun because you always feel like you leave somewhere, but like you don't like finish it, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like you're not like we've done everything the city can offer. It's more like we've done what made sense for our characters to do, and we leave, even though there's more questions here.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the appeal, is that you leave behind those questions.
I found a doc here of your Rise of Tiamat 2 pitches, Dan. Do you seem to have?
Oh God, yeah.
I wanted to ask you what you were thinking of with some of them, or with the three of them, because they all are cool, but they're all very distinctive ones.
Yeah. So I guess again the idea was like, sort of like, so in the context of our campaign, we played Horde of the Dragon Queen, Tyranny of Dragons, and we lost in the fight against Tiamat at the end, which obviously raises the question of like, what happened?
Yeah, this was a setting that you guys have been working on for a long time, and when an evil god is risen into that world, what happens now? So you came up with some pitches to kind of be the next step in that question, in that answer,
Yeah, so like, the kind of previous adventure was it was based on those existing adventures, so very sort of like traditional D&D in the sense of like you are the heroes, you go places and kill things, and that's your job. And like there's kind of an expectation that there's a group of people who tell you to go like what to kill and where and that kind of thing. And so like I kind of wanted to twist it, like, rather than us just being the same characters afterwards or being similar characters. I was like, well, like what other roles are associated with a war? And so there's 3 different pitches: the Last Ditch, End of the World, and Last Roar. So the Last Ditch is like kind of almost like a war drama was the idea.
Yeah.
The party are basically like the generals behind the lines because there was actually like a war going on against Tiamat. Like they're the ones who invaded Tiamat's region to try and defeat her armies as the party tried to fight the Avatar directly. And so the idea was that you guys are generals. But obviously, in the context of D&D, my understanding is always that like a general of an army is like a 17th level fighter, like just a really capable fighter, because like those martial instincts will make you a good general. Is Absolutely. How I always think of it.
I'm just thinking that because of D&D and how players are, it's just like how I think it's going to look versus how it is, and it's just like Blackadder or something like.
Yeah, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, the idea was like, it says like you are the masters of the forces of Itan, which is the place that invaded Tiamat's region basically. And so the idea is that you've lost because the party lost.
Yeah.
And so the only sensible thing left to do is a mass rout, is to retreat and return back to you have an armada of ships that will return your soldiers to your shores. You need to get everyone back in the boats and get out of there. And so the idea was, I kind of described like, the style of play will be broken up into RP management as you respond to like, administratively what's happening. And then also like direct combat, where basically like you guys are going to be like 17th level characters. And it's like, there's this problem, like a dragon is attacking, a red dragon has pinned down an entire phalanx of men. So the party are like, okay, we'll just kill the dragon because we're so powerful. We'll just do it. You know what I mean? And I loved that idea of like, the party just like are so dangerous that's their job.
Yeah.
Like they're not only in charge of the armies, they're also the most dangerous thing in the army.
Yeah.
They would be like,
we're in charge of taking care of the dragon now. All right, let's do it. Like, yeah.
And I just really like that idea of like, so like something insane is happening and the party go and deal with it, to like, stop certain armies, parts of the army being overrun or diminished or whatever. And I kind of envisioned in my head that the management side of it would actually be like a hex map of the coast, almost like a little like a management board game, sort of like mini game, where it would be like, every cycle, everyone would be like, okay, I'm going to like retreat this army one space, and I'm going to retreat this army one space, and I'm going to like reinforce my ships or whatever. And then after everyone had done something, it would be like, okay, all this bad stuff happens. And now you know what you need to do next time, right? So like the army moves up, like the bad army pushes you further. You have to route more. Maybe the avatar of Tiamat herself emerges and like just decimates a unit on her own, like that kind of thing. And so it would just be like you got like sweating over this like horrible situation, and then kind of getting the relief from that by just going out and beating the shit out of somebody because you're so powerful. So that I thought that would be fun. It was just kind of, as I say, like weird high concept, which is what pitches are good for.
It's
when you're getting weird, you need them to know up front.
It's definitely actually my favorite of the 3 ones there. Of like, it's such a different kind of game, but I think it would really be cool to do. Of like you're managing an army, it's kind of like it's D&D, but it's like also like Age of Empires as well. We have to like send units to different places. Like it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I kind of wanted to deliberately like that's why I sort of made the point of like you'll go out and fight yourself, because I was like D&D is still like a fighting game. You know what I mean? Like it's still kind of a game about being adventurers and getting cool fights and having adventures. So I was like, I still want that to be a thing. Yeah. But I also want you to have this kind of other side of the game you have to engage with because of your position as generals. Almost the idea that like a normal adventurer wouldn't have to do this, but you've got more responsibility, so you have to.
Yeah,
It's kind of a sort of my thinking.
and it's also kind of like it's fun scaling really of like we kind of got to around that level at the end of Rise of Tiamat.
Yes.
So like the next one we'll play characters around that level because we kind of were used to playing high level characters, and let's be other who are some easy people we can just make into really strong characters. Oh, generals of armies, of course they would be incredibly powerful people. So it's just kind of a natural kind of progression of it. Yeah, I like that. I like that one.
I like it too. I think probably this was the one I thought was most interesting. At least I think it was the one that I had the clearest idea in my head of how it would go. But I had a couple of ideas. So the next one was End of the World, which is sort of the same premise. The army that was there when Tiamat rose, but twisted entirely on its head. You start off. I'll just read the description because I think it's actually easiest. You were there. You watched the sky darken and the queen emerge. The dragon slayers failed. Now you're running, fleeing with whoever could keep up, cutting a desperate path through the jubilant cult. It doesn't matter where you go. You just need to escape. So this was the opposite idea. Basically, those little dudes that you'd be ordering around as a general, like you're one of them. You're like a level 1 schmo who's no one's ever heard of. You were supposed to die here, and you haven't yet, and that's it.
And that's
the only thing you got going for you is you're not dead yet.
It's so sequel as well. Like imagine first scene is like we're seeing the exact same scene we saw at the end of the last one, but we're like we take off a helmet and it's like that's the character we are now. Like
the camera pans back slightly and you're just a schmo. That was my idea for that, and the idea was like that you'd be like kind of just on the run, and you'd have a choice of options. It's like, okay, you can retreat the direct path, but then there's more baddies, or you can try to take the roundabout path and maybe get to within the borders of a neighboring country, but like you might be chased down. And so it would be sort of like very much like just like running for the hills, just like going and going and going. Like whenever you have to stop and rest, you're just so worried about getting caught up with. And like, you're running and then you run into like other bands of like deserters and stuff like that, or even just civilians trying to escape the devastation. And like, I really wanted the idea of there being like a high lethality to it, like that your character might just die and then you just have to start playing another character, like another deserter who was with you, because you're just disposable and what's happening is like apocalyptic. And I thought that would be fun. So yeah, I was excited about that. That was like very different, and I didn't really know how it would run exactly. I think it was mostly going to be like I was thinking of kind of like a threat system where basically like I'd kind of use like overland travel, but I'd incorporate like a system of like there's an ever encroaching threat, and like whenever the party rest or whenever they take too long to do something or whenever they like stop and explore to gather supplies, like the threat ticks up. And then eventually, like, it bursts and something bad happens. It's like these, cultists burst over the horizon on horseback and you're suddenly in combat against dangerous foes and you just have to deal with it. That kind of idea.
That's just, as you said, the opposite side of the first one. You're not powerful people at all. You're just, you're trying to just escape and live.
Yeah, you're like powerless, but your powerlessness is deeply tied to the previous game. And hopefully like gives you a very different context, because obviously like the war from the perspective of the high level party is like, this is just something that's happening and we need to get past it to get to the fight with Tiamat. But then the idea of kind of going, well, actually now you're in that war and you can't get past it because it's around you everywhere, right? And you're no longer like a 15th level character who can just fly. You're a person. So now you just have to deal with this problem. And so that was kind of fun.
And also it's like, you guys messed up in the last campaign, so now you're going to have to play guys trying to run away from your consequences, basically.
Yeah. Very literally, yeah.
Yeah. Weaker characters, just like who could die anytime because of what you did.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one is called The Last Roar. So this is a bit different basically, one of the ideas in the Tiamat campaign double bill thing is the Drakhorn.
Yeah.
And the Drakhorn is like a horn that sounds, and it makes people angry or scared.
Something like that. And it was just dragons who made dragons angry?
Yeah, initially only dragons can hear it, and it makes them like agitated. And then eventually everyone can hear it.
Yeah.
Like as Tiamat gets closer to rising, basically. And so effectively the idea is that the city, there's a city in the setting that was like that's like the city of dragons. And basically when Tiamat rose, the city of dragons collapsed. It like was overtaken by cultists, but also like, the Drakhorn had been building tension for months. And so like there was just a lot of like built up like, bad vibes basically.
Yeah.
And it just sort of imploded is the idea. Like the city just collapsed into ruin. And now it's kind of this dystopian version of itself where like the cultists of Tiamat have totally taken control, and it's like draconian. Hey, look, there's that word again. Like, they're like running this like brutal regime all for the Dragon Queen, because obviously it's the city of dragons, but like it was kind of before it was sort of a city in balance between the two draconic gods, and now it's out of balance. And so similar to that Robin Hood game I suggested, you play members of an underground resistance. So you're like a gang of people, because the city is so old, it's built on top of layers and layers and layers of city. But the idea is just that like you fled underground, and there's like, you're kind of like criminals on the edge of authority. Maybe like when the game starts, you're not criminals yet, but you're not like popular, you're not like well regarded in the city, and you're thinking about doing some crimes, and then sort of like you get into it. And the main idea here was that like you were going to be resistance members opposing the regime, but the city is basically ruined. And the kind of idea was like, I said it, I think the last two sentences of the pitch sum it up. The city belongs to the cult, but they won't keep it without a fight. So the idea that like you haven't, like, this isn't a war, right? Like you've lost. The cult have taken the city, but you're just going to make them suffer for keeping it.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're going to hit targets of importance. You're going to like figure out like what's important to the cult. How do we destroy it? And then you're going to like negotiate with the weird powers in the city and all the weird powers that live underground. There was going to be a big thing where like one of those powerful new organizations in the underground was going to be like a death cult, basically, that were like the city needs to be destroyed because it's corrupted. And like they would be kind of extremists, but maybe ones that you would rely on because they're like the most powerful people opposing Tiamat still in the city. And I liked that idea of like the people you need to rely on aren't like reliable, basically. Yeah. It's like, they're a death cult and that they're up to no good, but you also know that they're the only people who can give you like, a safe place to sleep and a bit of food.
Yeah.
So you kind of need them. And like, they're probably friendly enough, but they're very open about being a death cult. Like, so those are 3 pitches that I came up for that response. And they were great fun. I think in general, that was something that there's something very interesting about like sequel pitches as an idea. Because you've got a lot of material to play with. Like when you're pitching into the open, it's like you could do anything. It's like, nothing's more imposing than a blank sheet of paper. You could do anything, so you're not really sure. But like when you have a very clear, like your campaign has to follow this campaign, then the question becomes like, well, how does it follow it? And that's actually a very interesting question.
And because I remember reading the end of Rise of Tiamat, because I was just kind of curious what the stat block of Tiamat looked like and stuff, and it said like, I think there's something like, what will happen if you lose? And then it's like anything could happen now. And like, hold on, I gotta have a look, see if I can find it. I do have the book on my computer.
I think it basically just says like darkness reigns for 100 years or something
the dead
like
speak.
that. Like, excuse me.
Hold on, master the game. What happens next? Live or die? You now have a story all your own. Care to star another? Unravel the secrets of the cult of the dragon in the new Tyranny of Dragons module for Neverwinter free-to-play MMORPG. There we go.
great.
get the MMO.
Let's play the MMO.
Yeah, see what Tiamat's Draconic. Yeah, it's just websites, but basically it just says, yeah, what happens next? Play the MMO. So that's what we should have done. We should have just played the MMO, guys.
Oh, we should have just played the MMO.
We should have just played the MMO. All right. Yeah. You stood before the fiery gates and faced down the combined power of the cult of the dragon and the red wizards of Thay. Tiamat, the queen of evil dragons, will not soon forget your part in this fight. Okay. Very scary stuff there. Well, sorry about that, Tiamat. And she's still about in that setting. She's still hanging around.
Ah, yeah. She got dealt with.
Sure, yeah. It'll happen eventually. God damn, we're getting feature length here. Anything else we want to talk about? Anything? Any last bits? Anything I can say? Because it's a lot of you just talking about your campaign pitches there. Is there anything I need to say?
Is there anything you'd like to say?
Anything I'd like to say? Well, campaigns are a lot of fun. And I think that when we were talking about when I was talking about my different ideas there of like, we had a prison escape one, and there's like Torment Arc one. There's a mystery in a city one. I like the idea of doing all of them with like very similar characters in all of them. It doesn't have to always be completely separate characters. I kind of like doing a bit of having the same character show up for different adventures. It's very kind of pulpy. It's very like Indiana Jones like, where he just shows up and deals with something new every time. So I don't think it always has to be like campaign pitch, we're gonna break through a prison now, so make completely new characters, or campaign pitch, Torment Arc, make completely new characters. I think you can kind of bring back the old character if you so want. I really kind of like that idea, and I would love that idea if it ever happened, but it doesn't have to always happen, because people like to change people like to change their characters all the time. But I like the idea of just having a core cast of guys, and like they just keep getting into different situations. They just keep it
keeps happening.
Yeah, like he's in prison now. Why? Like, I don't know, somehow. He's dealing with a cult. Why? I don't know.
I really like that. Yeah, just like literally like, just wake up in prison and it's like, why is this happening?
Why is this happening? What happened? Yeah, but campaigns are a lot of fun. We have DMs, as DMs, we have a lot of ideas in our head and want to get them all out. And there's not a whole lot of room in the day. There's not a whole lot of time in the day. Room in the day, I guess.
There's not a lot of room in the day.
Not a lot of room in the day. What's like time speaking, I guess. But we, just do any of them. Just do whichever ones you want. And D&D is always a bit of fun. I don't know. I don't know what my closing statement of that was. It's good. Do them all. I want to do some more campaigns. I want to play more. I want to DM some more stuff. And I think I'm starting to do that soon. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, maybe.
Well, why wouldn't you? When it's so much fun.
Da da da. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. We kind of just talked, but I think there's some good stuff in there. There's a lot of good bits that you could keep in your head and you can use if you so wish. Yeah, let's leave it there, guys. If you like this, consider subscribing and do all the other stuff that we normally say, because I don't think this is going to be your first one you listen to, but if it is, hello. See you in the flip-flop, I guess.
Yeah, you fucking tell him, man.
Yeah. I'm not telling him. I'm just... I just don't think for talking as a free action, we got to do all this stuff because they listen this far, and I think they know everything about us. But should we do the call to action? Do you want to do the call of action? Call to action. Call of action
is my favorite game.
Yeah.
I like the guns in it.
Call of action.
And I like I like the dog. The dog's good.
The dog is good.
And I like how in Call of Action
you fight against vampires.
And the vampires, and the dog is really good against vampires. I like that a lot.
Dog's good against vampires.
So that's good.
I'm done. I'm done with this.
It's fine, man. Do you want me to do a Call of Action? Or do you want to just leave it there? What do you want to do? I'm happy to do one. You could do a clean cut. We can show up. I do it, and it's like we're professionals.
Do a call of action.
Thank you so very much for listening to this episode of Talking is a Free Action. Goodness, what a mouthful of a name.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed this show. It's been a little bit of an old, rambly time through a field, but it's been pleasant to talk with my friend Mikey, and I hope you've enjoyed the experience of having the two of us talking in your ears. If you've enjoyed this, you could subscribe on whatever platform it is you use to listen to podcasts. If you would like to get in touch, there's a lot of different ways to do that. But the two best, and I'm only going to mention two because they're the best, is to follow us on Twitter, or not even follow us, just talk to us on Twitter, which is @CreatureClubPod. We post every time we release an episode, and we're always keeping an eye on it. So if you have any feedback, you can post under the episode, and you can expect a reasonably prompt response from one of us. If you have longer form thoughts, or if you have homebrew bits and pieces you would like us to talk about, you can instead email us, which is creatureclubpodcast@gmail.com. We also all keep an eye on that, so we'll definitely see it. So those are both good ways to get in contact. Otherwise, it'd be pretty cool if you shared this with a friend if you think it's good. Maybe not this episode. I'd understand if you listened to this episode and thought, not this one.
We said that about every single episode. For the past 4 episodes, we said we consider showing our show to someone, but not this episode.
I mean, I think in the context of talking is a free action, especially not these episodes.
Especially this one.
I think anywhere along the mainline Creature Club show is actually a fine entry point. Obviously not like Dragons Part 7, but I think that's fairly self-evident.
Yeah.
But anywhere, any episode there, I think a great way to start is if there's a monster we talk about that you like or that your friend likes, or even if there's an idea you used and you say to someone, hey, that idea I used, it's actually from this podcast. That would be a cool way to share it. But of course, if you don't want to share it, that's also fine. I have a hard time recommending podcasts, and I wouldn't hold that same difficulty against anyone else.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I think the only other thing I'll say is, both Mikey and I started this episode talking about how we've found it to be very rewarding recently to engage in creative projects. And I would encourage anyone listening to find something that gives you that same energy, especially if it's something where the first step feels a little hard or imposing. Not to diminish that it does feel hard or imposing, but I do find, and hopefully you will find as well, that once you start doing it, it's very rewarding and you will want to keep doing it.
And the fun should be doing it and having a product done. It shouldn't be about becoming famous or something like that, or making money off it. That's a perfectly fine little goal, big goal to have in your big goals.
Yes.
In your big goals, kind of in your dreams, but it shouldn't be it'd be fine to work towards that, but it shouldn't be the instant short-term goal.
Yeah. As Bob Ross says, there's nothing wrong with wanting that happy little buck.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's absolutely fine, but the reward hopefully is overcoming the small challenges, at least at first.
And you get better as you go on. The more you do it, the better you get.
That's true.
So whatever it is that you do, keep at it. Consider keeping at it if you have the time right now. I know a lot of people do. I do. Daniel does.
I do.
The other guy, Timbo. I'm probably gonna need to do this. I'm probably gonna do this now, but I wanted to put up a poll on the Twitter of who's your favorite member of Creature Club, and it's gonna be Greg, Big Bimbus, and Geraldine or something. Just that,
that would be very good. I would enjoy that a lot.
There we go. I know the last episode I said that we were going to do it. I think I'll do that, and we've already done it. And then I had to edit in by the way, we did this poll, so it might happen here now. Cool. Yeah, that's all the call of actions. So let's leave it there. Thanks for listening to this episode, guys. We'll see you the next one. I've been Mikey.
And I've been Dan.
Stay cool. And keep talking.
Call of action.
Call of action.